Hey there, 277. Welcome to session 5. In this week's session, we will build off of the idea we camped in last week, which was of arrays. This time, what we're going to do is advance our understanding of how it is that you, as a developer, might interact with arrays rather than pass the the value of the location of the first element in the array like you had to do with this previous week's assignment. What we'll be doing is we'll be looking here at pointers. A pointer, you'll potentially recall, we certainly did use in CIS277 when we were doing array functions. The rationale there being is we don't want to pass a copy of an array from one function to another because of how damn quickly it is that is going to use up all of our available memory. So rather than do that, what we're going to do is work with pointers, a very, very small reference to an address of a location. Rather than dump everything here in the overview, the video immediately underneath this one is a pointer primer where we remind you about that. Now, I know that one of the big challenges you all would have had in the previous sessions work when you were reworking the binary in the linear search algorithms, or the selection sort rather, algorithms, is as follows. And I was being a sneaksy hobbits and not telling you outright. I did leave a couple of verbal hints, but it is my experience that 2020 has sledgehammered us so bad that there is no longer any use for subtlety in the way it is that we approach material. So I'm just going to go ahead and mention this. Here, part of the challenge in reworking the code samples that you had into something that was functional was remembering that the arrays that were in the code samples were in fact integer arrays. So they had integer considerations there. So when we were inputting values into the arrays, it could use the cin, whereas with the redo examples, those were with strings, so they would have required the get line to function properly. Whereas in the function stubs, we would have had, returns an int, and, as its arguments, it would have accepted integers. Some of you had been struggling mightily, potentially some of you mightily, with changing the argument that those functions will even accept there had to be changed from integer arrays to string arrays. The other thing, again, I left this as I'm going to say it as a hint, but perhaps a little too coded of a hint, was you were best served when you were reading values into your integer, or your string rather, arrays. You were best served by doing that directly in main, because again, we wouldn't have had to work with a pointer to the reference of the location for our array. And most of you did that. Some of you tried to offshore that to a function, which, for modular programming, certainly I could appreciate. But if you didn't pass along the size, that wasn't going to work for you properly. So over the course of the week here, I will certainly get in there and provide comments on any of the difficulties that you may or may not have had with getting those solutions quite right. Working with arrays, turns out to be a big reason why we even have Chapter 9, the upcoming chapter, because it turns out it is a pain to work with. So, that's looking back, but looking forward, we're going to start working here with pointers. So buckle in, because the language gets complex. It's not that the operations are complex, but the language of it certainly is, because I have to say things like it's a pointer to an address and a variable's value, which turns out to be a huge mouthful. So that's what the primer video immediately following this one is good for. So have at it, everybody. And, as always, reach out if you have any questions, because it's the only way I'm going to be able to answer you.